was beautiful. Thank you. You started singing that song, and I just got this big smile on my face. Someone left an egg on my podium.
Don't be Spencer.
This is so sweet.
Spencer wants to join the band, so.
Spencer wants to. Spencer is so cute. Every week he does our programs, and today he came up and he said, "Melanie, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yes, Spencer." He says, "Can I have a break from doing the programs?"
So I can join the band.
Yeah, it just goes to show we all sometimes need a break. Oh, well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful to see you all. And because Asha's going to ask, it makes me feel happy. How does it make you feel? How does it? The talk you gave last week, Sydney, was great. On appreciation, on how we express appreciation, on how we express it deeply so that the person hearing it knows. I thought that was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much. I've been working on it all week. So, in our gratitude series, we've been exploring the ways and the practices to help us live life more fully and more gratefully, to live from a thankful place in our hearts, not to kind of leap from I'm grateful for this to I'm grateful for this, but to live in the flow of gratitude and thankfulness. And so last week, again, we learned to express appreciation more deeply. We've discussed various gratitude practices. Oh, and in that vein, how many people have been writing down little gratitudes for our upcoming gratitude journal? Keep them, because the kids are going to make us a box, and at the bottom, we're going to put those in there. So please, contribute your gratitude thoughts so that we can put those on our journal. But we have focused this month on how we continue to develop our ability to live fully and in gratitude. So what happens as we practice these things is we then turn on the news. And I'm reminded these days that the world has again become a scarier place. Since the bombings in Paris on November 13th, we've had increased fear worldwide on how to deal with these increased acts of terrorism. I read yesterday that in Brussels, the Belgian capital, they were on virtual lockdown because some of the terrorists were Belgian and they were afraid of multiple coordinated attacks in that city. So you turn on the news and you see soldiers in cami patrolling the streets of Brussels with machine guns. You know, my parents used to travel a lot. Whenever they went to Brussels, they said it had the best food in the world and it was a beautiful city. And they did not see soldiers in camis with machine guns. But that's kind of where we are today. Fear builds upon fear, builds upon fear. It's just that cycle of energy. It's at times like this that I look around and I look at communities like us and I say, thank goodness for One World. And thank goodness for like-minded communities like One World. We exist in the belief that we are all one. We are connected. And that our highest calling, even in the midst of fear, is to reach out and love. Thank God for communities like us at this time. In the face of fear, despair, and desperate measures, we continue to speak out about the need to feel compassion, to work for peace, to reach out, and to love. So, sometimes it's possible to get a little discouraged doing that. Sometimes when you're a member of a New Thought community and you talk about things like peace and forgiveness, people will look at you and they'll just call you mental. They'll just say, are you delusional? Look at what happened. Those people are dead. Stuff is blowing up. They ask, why do you do that? How can you still think that way? Have any of you ever gotten that reaction? How can you still think that way? We get accused of failing to acknowledge the suffering in the world, engaging in happy thinking. We're just going to turn off the news. We're just going to be happy. We're going to create little oases of joy around ourselves. We're going to have crystals, and we're going to meditate, and we're going to eat organic food that I can't pronounce. And we're going to just create our own little world. That's what we're accused of. Is anybody familiar with that? Do you ever have to feel that sometimes you have to convince people that's really not what you're doing? It's not all about me. I love that. For those who didn't know, Catherine just said, what? Okay. The world just kind of sends us little joys like that every now and then. That was great. They say that we're just kidding ourselves, that what we need to do is wake up to the fact that the world is a violent, cruel, random place. Which is kind of ironic to me as I was thinking about this, because we are trying to wake up. We are all on a path of awakening, but not to that. We are on the path of awakening to the greater truth that that is not true. That the world at its essence is a place of love and wonder and joy. The world is a place that has values in it, that has people in it who espouse love and compassion, knowing that these values transcend all violence, all division, all man-made separation that is believed in by those people who tell us the world is a violent, random place. We know the truth. And that's why we continue to speak of the eternal truths of love, forgiveness, and compassion. We know that conflict will never create peace. We know that we cannot fear ourselves or hate ourselves into a more loving world, no matter how much we try or how much people try to convince us. We know that victory in war does not create peace. All it does is create an interlude in which each side can reload. As A.J. Musti wrote, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. Uncertain times are really the times to remember these truths and to have the courage to speak them. I'm going to get my reading back from Joan. As Wayne Mueller said in our reading, will we be courageous in speaking what we know to be true? Will we be awake and alive? Now, these truths of speaking what we know to be true, that the world is a place of compassion and love and forgiveness and peace, these are not limited to when it's convenient. These are not limited to when the sun is shining or when things are going well. Principles of love and peace and forgiveness are strong enough to see us through challenging times. As a matter of fact, they are the only principles that will. Don't we know that to be true? They are the only values that will. The universe is powered by love, which always, always drives out fear. That is why I'm so glad this month that we are focusing on gratitude, on the notion that the world is an abundant, loving, prosperous place, a wonderful place, for which we should continually give thanks. It is. It still is. Even in the midst of violence and unrest and terror. Those are challenges we face, but they don't diminish the truth we know. What do they mean? They mean that our job is not done. Right? Every week we say our mission and vision. It's not that it's done. It's a mission and it's a vision. It's something we are working toward. It's aspirational. That's why we're here on this earth in these bodies, these thick, dense bodies, to keep working toward this truth, to keep being the light that we know continues to shine in us. Now, does this mean we do nothing in the face of threat and violence? No. We take reasonable steps to protect ourselves. We pray and we work that the causes of this violence can be addressed. We take the steps necessary to stop it, to protect ourselves, but not out of fear and not out of revenge. We know that no baby is born wanting to hate, wanting to kill. These are things that you learn. Well, the good news is, if these are things that you learn, there are other things you learn. You don't have to learn hate, you can learn different, right? That's the good news. We are born wanting to love. Thank God for that. That is the movement of spirit in us from day one. We know that hearts can change because each one of us has seen it. Each one of us has experienced it. That is our job. It's not yet done, but that just means there's a lot of opportunity to keep going. A sense of gratitude for all of it leads us into the place where our hearts begin to open, where we make the choice not to fear. That's why gratitude is so important. It's the first step of stepping into love. stepping into courage. And it doesn't mean that our hearts are not broken. It just means that our hearts are big enough to hold it all, to hold the sorrow, to hold the compassion, to hold the forgiveness. It just means that they get bigger. It just means they become a vessel in which all of it can be contained. I was driving here today and I saw a billboard that said in this holiday season, 1 in 4 children in Georgia will face hunger. It was an ad for the Atlanta Community Food Bank. Now think about that. 1 in 4 children will face hunger. Here in Georgia. What a staggering figure that is. Did anyone know that figure? I didn't know it. But it really led me to this thought. It means my heart can be broken, but it doesn't mean I despair or that I fear. It just means that I have the opportunity to feel compassion, that I have the opportunity to extend love, that I have the opportunity to take a step and help. It doesn't mean I'm less grateful. It just means gratitude is in there with all of it. Life is a wonderful place, even in its challenges, even in its moments of darkness and despair. As we awaken, our privilege is to grow our hearts big enough to hold it all. Do you see what I mean? You know who taught me that was Chris Kell, and I thank her for that. Huh? Because we love her, yes. Because we love her and we are grateful for her. When times are hard, when times are scary, that is the only time, the best time, to illustrate, to live a feeling of thanksgiving. I'm going to tell you a story I've told you before. For those of you who have heard it before, just hear it again because it's a great story. And for those of you who haven't, it's still a great story. I told it a while back. It was the dark days of the Depression. A group of ministers were challenged as to how to bring a story of thanksgiving to their congregations. It was 1929, and ministers had gathered to discuss how in these very dark days they preach, they give a message to their congregations about Thanksgiving. Things were about as bad as they could get. They had no idea what there was to be thankful for. The bread lines were long, everybody was out of work, the stock market had tanked, and the term Great Depression was a great descriptor of the feeling, the mood of the country. So a lot of the ministers thought, well, we shouldn't even kind of mention Thanksgiving. We'll just lightly touch on it because things really stink. And so it would be offensive, in a sense, to talk about Thanksgiving because there's nothing to be thankful for. But one of the senior ministers said no. This was not the time just to give a passing mention to Thanksgiving. This was the time for the nation to get matters in perspective and to give thanks to God, to Spirit, by whatever name you call it, for the blessings that are showered on us now and to come. In those dark times, that was the time to focus on Thanksgiving. Sometimes, even then, the messages of abundance might have been muted, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Just because the clouds are there doesn't mean there's no sun. It just means it's covered and it's coming back. The most intense moments of thankfulness are not found in times of plenty, but when difficulties abound. Think of the pilgrims on the first Thanksgiving. Half their number was dead, they didn't have a country, but they were still giving thanks. Their gratitude was not for things they had, but it was in something in which they believed. It was a new freedom, a new home, a new opportunity to start. They weren't giving thanks for all the food they had, because frankly they had none. They were giving thanks for the opportunity to be who they were, to move ahead, to live in freedom, to start new. It was that same sense of gratitude that led Abraham Lincoln to formally establish the first Thanksgiving Day in the middle of the Civil War. Talk about dark times. And he knew that what the country needed then was an official recognition of Thanksgiving. To put things in perspective, to let people know that God still showered the country with his blessings and all we had to do was realize it. You know, it's funny, sometimes when you're walking along and you're feeling kind of dark, don't you just find that you look up and the world gives you like a great reminder? Okay, so I went to that comedy club meetup the other day. Who else went to that? It was fun. Okay, Tom went to that. So Deborah and I are driving along to this comedy club meetup, and it had been a tough day. It had not been a challenging day. Okay, so I'm kind of whining. And I'm turning the corner, and somebody had put in their yard a big sign, just a yard sign that said, "Everything is going to be okay." I'm like, oh my God. It was like a sign from God to me. I'm turning the corner and I'm like, oh, everything is so terrible. Everything is going to be okay. I'm like, yes, thank you. Because of the awareness to look up and see stuff like that. It was great. Literally, it was like God had put it there for me. And I felt better. Have you guys had stuff like that happen to you? You're just walking along and you see like a cardinal or a bluebird, and there's some symbolism to those birds that I have no idea what it is. But it just picks you up. We have to be awake to those, and we have to have hearts open enough to realize that they can bring us joy. One of my favorite wisdom teachers is a guy named Father Richard Rohr, R-O-H-R. I know some of you know of him. He is he's a Christian mystic is what he is. And he has a center called the Center for Action and Contemplation. He teaches that the world, all of it, is a holy place. And I think gratitude helps us get to that place. Gratitude opens our eyes to the fact that all of it is a holy place. Organized religion in the past has taught us that there are sacred places and there are not sacred places. Church is a sacred place. So I go to my job, I raise my kids, I drive my car, I do the shopping, all that's worldly stuff, or what they call the profane. Then on Sundays, or whatever day of the week, depending on my faith tradition, I go and I have a holy experience. I pray, I sing, I do whatever, and then when it's over, I say goodbye to my friends and I leave the building and I go back. Isn't that how religion sometimes constructs it? Holy, not holy. But that's not true. We here know that God is in all of it. God is in every choice we make, every step we take, every breath we breathe, whether I'm here or, as we say, in the Kroger. Right? I don't even say we're surrounded by God, because to say we're surrounded by God, that kind of implies a sense of separation. We are of God. All of us, sometimes appearing as me, as you, as you, as you. We are connected. We flow together. Our senses don't let us see it because we are here in these dense human forms. But we are of God. All of us, wherever we go. There is no place that God is not. There is no distinction between the sacred and the rest of life. He writes that the whole universe and all events are sacred, doorways to the divine, for those who know how to see. And what is it that opens our eyes to see? I know you're thinking this word. It's gratitude. It's a sense of living in joyful thankfulness is the first step in opening our eyes to see that all is a sacred place. That awareness moves us beyond theology, beyond orthodoxy, to practice. That's the difference, they say, between religion and spirituality. Religion is the study of theology, the study of orthodoxy. Spirituality is more what they call orthopraxy, which is the practice. Spirituality is getting up and doing it. Religion, not to disreligion, because religion can lead you into spirituality, but it's the study of religion. Spirituality is getting up and putting boots to it. Right? That's what we're about. That's how we know it's true. I don't know this stuff is true because I read about it. I know this stuff is true because it pops into my face. It happens in my life. It thwacks into my heart. That's how I know it's true. And I think that's how we all know it's true. Okay, thwack. That's a clinical term. That's the clinical term. It's not just a holy place when things are going well. I mean, when things are going well, it's more fun. As Asha said, it's more fun to drive a Lamborghini, even though I personally think I would drive it directly into the next tree. But those are fun things. But it's difficult times that call us to grow, that call us to look into our inner resources, to connect with spirit, to wonder what the next step is. When we wonder what the next step is, that is when spirit provides us. We're not living the answers, we're just living the questions. But as we walk into the questions is when spirit answers them. These are the gifts of every day. I bet you wondered when I was going to get to my talk title. But that's what it is. Even when times are hard, every day is a choice. Every day is a gift. When you're given a gift, you're also given a choice. You can unwrap it with wonder and love and joy, or you can say, thanks, I'll get to it later. Right? Every gift is a choice. And every day is a choice that we have to open our eyes and open our hearts and look around and see what opportunities we have to love, to serve, to forgive, to reach out, to be the light for ourselves, and even better, for each other. For people who are looking for the light. We have the opportunity to show that. Malcolm Muggeridge writes, all happenings, great and small, are parables whereby God speaks. The art of life is to get the message. Gratitude opens us up to hear the message when we live in its flow. Don't you find that to be true?
Yes.
Yes, it really does. So what does that mean for us here? Well, here it means that we continue to live gratefully, joyfully, even in the midst of horrible things going on. That is the time when we need to do it, and when we need to stand up and say, I believe in peace, I believe in love, I believe in forgiveness, and to live it. It was St. Francis who said, preach whenever you can, using words only when necessary. Do you remember that? We do it in our lives. We do it in the way we live. We navigate the challenges with the help of Spirit, with the help of each other, our prayer practices, our gratitude practices, our meditation. You can also continue to eat foods that I can't pronounce. That's fine. We continue to live according to the truth we know, even when things are scary. In her book, The Places That Scare You, Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron writes, we can let the circumstances of our lives harden us so that we become increasingly resentful and afraid, or we can let them soften us and make us kinder and more open. We always have this choice. So, as we move into Thanksgiving, as we move into the holiday season, as we go out those doors and we see scary things, let us remember who we are. Let us remember the truths that got us here, that fill our hearts with joy, that animate us with the energy that permits us to show up as who we are. We do not give in to fear. We are voices of hope as the manifestations of God here on earth. And it is our joy and our privilege to do that. So let us take these thoughts into meditation.